Why does modern luxury look unfinished? You've seen the rooms. The plaster left rough, the beam left bare. The most expensive rooms in the world right now look, carefully, expensively, like nobody finished them. This unfinished look is a 440-year-old idea, born here at 34.9 degrees north in Yamazaki, in a mud-walled room the size of 2 sleeping mats, built for the most powerful man in Japan. Japan is a humid, seismic archipelago. Wood rots, paper tears, earthquakes shake down what pride puts up. The climate itself wrote the rulebook. Nothing you build will last. The culture simply chose to make peace with the worn, the weathered, and the incomplete, because that is what the world does to everything anyway. Long before it became a hashtag or a mood board staple, accepting the incomplete was functionally a survival truce with the weather. Step off the old Kyoto-Osaka road into the Temple of Myokian, and you can stand in front of the room where this aesthetic reached its final form. It is called Tai-an. A national treasure, it is the oldest surviving 2-mat tea room in existence. The entire floor is about 3 square meters, smaller than most bathrooms it now inspires. Tradition says the tea master Sen no Rikyu built it around 1582. The walls are mud, mixed with straw, and left rough enough to see the stalks. One window is made by simply leaving a patch of wall unplastered, so the bamboo lattice inside shows through. The window is the wall, deliberately incomplete. And then there is the door. They call it a nijiriguchi, a crawl-in entrance, about 65 centimeters square. There is no walking through it. Warlord or merchant, you bow, you fold yourself down, and you enter on your knees. A sword physically cannot come through. The rack for them is outside. The door functions as a machine for removing status. Whoever you were on the road, the architecture deletes it, forcing you to leave your weapons and your rank on the outside. 4 years later, the exact same ruler, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, commissioned another tea room. This one was portable, packed into crates, and every surface, walls, ceiling, sliding doors, was covered in gold leaf. He had it assembled inside the imperial palace to serve tea to the emperor. The same court built the gold room and the mud room in the same decade. The mud was a deliberate architectural choice, not a budget constraint. Gold was for when power needed an audience. Mud was for when power wanted to feel true. To understand the stakes of that choice, start with the words. Originally, wabi came from an old verb meaning to languish, wretchedness, poverty, the state of having nothing. Sabi carried the loneliness of age. Spoken aloud, it sounds like the Japanese word for rust. These were conditions, not compliments. Over a couple of centuries, poets and then 16th century tea masters turned those definitions inside out. The hermit's lack of possessions was reframed as freedom. The worn surface was reframed as depth. Plainness became the summit of elite taste. The market noticed immediately. In Rikyu's Japan, celebrated tea utensils, called meibutsu, or named things, carried the status of fortresses. Warlords hunted famous pieces the way kings hunt crowns, paying their generals for military victories with tea bowls instead of land. In 1582, the general Takigawa Kazamasu was rewarded for the Takeda campaign with an entire province and 2 districts more. He wrote that he was disappointed. He had hoped for a famous tea caddy. A man was handed a province and sulked because what he wanted was a small, plain jar for powdered tea. Under Rikyu, rough, handmade local bowls came to outrank refined, imported Chinese porcelain among people who could afford either. In this economy, roughness never meant poor. Rough meant carefully chosen. The plainness itself was the price tag. Taste at that pitch is power, and wielding it is dangerous. As Hideyoshi's tea master, Rikyu perfected the aesthetic of almost nothing, and in doing so, became one of his closest confidants. In 1591, Hideyoshi ordered his tea master's death. The 70-year-old Rikyu performed the ritual himself. The official charges were thin: a statue placed too proudly, whispers about utensil prices. Historians still debate the real reason, pointing to a collision of aesthetics, court politics, and possible opposition to a coming war. If you like it when a familiar look turns out to have a spine of history like this, that is the whole channel. One building, one idea at a time, decoded. Follow along for the next one. Write this down if you keep lines from films. In 1582, a Japanese general was given a whole province and sulked because he'd hoped for a tea caddy. Expensive simplicity predates Instagram by more than 4 centuries. The execution of a tea master proves that this aesthetic reached far beyond interior decoration. It functioned as an instrument of state power, potent enough to get you killed. So how does a 16th century court discipline end up on a paint chart in your local hardware store? It starts in 1933. Japan is electrifying, and writers like Junichiro Tanizaki begin publishing defenses of traditional domestic dimness against the arriving electric glare. In 1977, those ideas appear in English, and Western architects adopt them as a manifesto. Then, in 1994, a small gray book by Leonard Cohen hands the West a specific term for the beauty of things imperfect, impermanent, and incomplete. By the 2000s, European art dealers turned the concept into physical interiors: lime plaster, raw timber, and patina held up like provenance. In 2019, Amman opens a resort in a Kyoto forest, offering 26 rooms in the register of a hermit's hut at a nightly rate that would have startled the hermit. The look becomes the global template for quiet luxury. And here is the twist. That compound, Wabi-Sabi, the 2 words hyphenated into one idea, barely exists in classical Japanese. Wabi was one thing, sabi another. The pairing that conquered the internet was packaged for export, and it worked so well it had to be re-imported into Japan, where standard dictionaries still do not list it. The word your architect uses is younger than the fax machine. It is a highly successful modern translation error built for export. One part of the philosophy did cross the ocean intact. An aesthetic that prefers the mended bowl to the new one, that repairs a break with gold and calls the scar the best part, is practically the oldest anti-waste logic on Earth. Letting a surface age naturally is what sustainability looks like in practice. Keeping and mending is free. Flying in specialized plasterers to artificially hand-age a brand new wall built last Tuesday is the modern luxury theater version. Run the customs check on what actually survived the historical export. The modern world kept rough walls, the dim light, and the honored patina. What stayed on the dock was the door. Nobody crawls into a penthouse. Nothing about a hand-aged clay wall asks its owner to leave their rank on a rack outside. The tea room was a machine with a moving part, the bow, and the export shipped the machine without it. So why does modern luxury look unfinished? Because 440 years ago, the most powerful men in Japan used wealth to rehearse humility. The modern copy kept the walls and reversed the sentence. It uses humility to display wealth. Wabi-Sabi was functionally a door, and the door only ever opened one way, with your head down. Without it, the aesthetic is just a price tag.